Hi, we want to take a look at these factoring questions, and we're going to just go through them one by one with the different styles that we have. The first one in letter A is a simple trinomial. We recognize it because the first term is a 1. So you set up your brackets, and there's no other way to break that up except for a D and a D. And then we need factors of 15 that are going to subtract to give you 14. Well, 15 can break up as 3 and 5, but that won't work. So the pair that we need is 15 and 1, or 1 and 15. Then to determine the signs, the minus on the 15 says the signs are going to be different. The larger of the two numbers is going to have to be positive. So you're done. Question B is not a simple trinomial right away because the leading coefficient on the y squared is a 4. However, looking at the three numbers, you realize you can factor a 4 out of all three of the terms. Y squared minus 5y minus 6. Now we're looking at the factors of 6 that are going to subtract to give 5. Now, a lot of the times you think right away 3 and 2, but they're not going to subtract to give 5. So the pair that we actually are going to need is a 6 and a 1. So we set this up with the variables. The values 6 and 1, which multiply to give 6, and are going to subtract to give 5. The larger of the two numbers is going to have this sign, which is the minus on the 5, and you have different signs in the brackets. Letter C, the problem is we don't like to have leading negatives. In fact, we're not going to factor anything with a leading negative, so we're not going to change the order around. It won't make sense here. So instead what we do is factor out that negative, leaving you with k squared minus, that's right, the sign changes, 17k plus 60. Now we're looking for the factors of 60 that are going to add to give 17. Well, 60 breaks down as 1 times 60, 2 times 30, 3 times 20, 4 times 15, and 5 times 12, and 6 times 10. The pair that's going to work for us, that's going to add to give 17, is 5 and 12. So we set it up with the two k's and the 12 and the 5, sticking true to putting the bigger number first. And this says, the plus on the 60 says the signs are the same. They're both going to be minuses. Okay, moving on to letter D. This is right away a simple trinomial. Factors are going to be factors of 54 that are going to add to give 29, 27, and 2. The signs are the same, and they're both positive. All right, something changes here. We have two terms. Anytime you have two terms, you realize not a trinomial, so our first suspect is that it's a difference of two squares, which, well, we have two terms and we have this difference. However, you can't square root 98 or 18. But there's a GCF we can take out of 2, leaving us with 49 minus 9c squared. And hopefully you'll recognize right away that 49 and 9 can both be square rooted easily into 7 and 9 with the c on there. And we're going to have a plus and a minus. Letter F, we have 4 terms. All right, so our first bet is to try pairing them up and looking for common factors. When I take the 2 out of this pair, I get x minus 15y. When I take the 2 out of this pair, I get 3xy plus 10. And those two brackets are nowhere near the same. So we got to scratch that and say we better change the order. Looking for a better order usually means paying attention to either the letters or, in this case, I think the numbers. 4x and 6xy have a good ratio of 2 to 3. And then I'm going to try and match that up with the 20 and the 30 to give me a plus 20 and a minus 30y. Factor out 2x, and I get 2x minus 3y. And factor out a 10, and I think I've made a mistake. That's right. That's going to be just a 2 minus 3y, because when I factor out the 10 here, I'm going to get 2 minus 3y. The brackets match. So I'm going to take out the common bracket 2 minus 3y out in front. The leftovers are 2x plus 10. Now, that would be the end of the story, except that we have common factor in that second bracket of 2. So I'm going to take that 2 out and put it way out in the very front, so that inside of this bracket we now have x plus 5. Letter G. 3 terms, and we have a leading coefficient of 3, so we have GCF, which can be taken out, being careful to divide properly and get the right amounts. We need factors of 45 that are going to add to give 18. So that's going to be 15 and 3. The signs are the same. They're both positives. Little bit of a twist in letter H because we have an exponent of 4. But also, in the middle, we have an exponent of 2. So the leading terms in both of these brackets won't just be b and b. They're going to be b squared and b squared. Still the same kind of questions as before, though. We need factors of 36 that will subtract to give 5. Long story short, it's going to be 9 and 4. 9 and 4. And you get plus on the bigger number because the signs are going to be different, and minus on the smaller number. We're not finished because lo and behold, we have a difference of squares. So b squared plus 9 won't change because you don't do a sum of squares, but the difference of squares can be factored into b and b plus and minus 2 and 2. Letter I, simple difference of squares, you think. So let's do 2 and 2, 6w and 6w, plus and minus. However, we're not finished because we have common factors in both brackets. You could take a 2 out of this bracket, you could take a 2 out of this bracket. We'll take both 2's to the front, multiplying them together to give you 4. And you'll be left with 1 plus 3w and 1 plus minus 3w for your 2 brackets. Almost there. We'll just got 3 more to do. Letter J is a little bit of a throwback for the grouping that we did before, or the common factors, but you'll see it better if you rewrite the x minus y squared as x minus y times x minus y. And you're taking out a common factor in the front of x minus y. However, this bracket is reversed. What do? To reverse a bracket that's a subtraction, you have to throw a negative out in front. Negative of x minus y is the same thing as y minus x. And my second pair of brackets, x minus y and x minus y. I'm going to take a common bracket of x minus y out in front. Only one pair of x minus y's from that second pair of brackets, and my leftovers are going to be negative 2 minus x minus y. That's the leftover bracket of x minus y. Need to clean this up. The x minus y can just be recopied. This bracket's going to be negative 2 minus x plus y. The minus sign affected both terms. You want to see if there's any like terms, anything to simplify? No, there's nothing, sorry. So that's our final answer. Letter K, x to the 4. Oh, this looks familiar, except that this time there's an x to the 4, x to the 3, and x squared. So in other words, I've got a GCF of x squared. To bring this into a simple trinomial that we can now break down in the traditional way, x squared and then x and x, which are going to be 6 and 2 are the factors that will subtract to give 8. Sorry, that won't work. They have to add. Got my mistake there. Plus, and so they're going to add to give 8, and the signs will be the same. They're both negatives. 4 terms, grouping. Pair them up sometimes right away. Try that first order that's already there. I take an a out. I'm left with a squared plus 1. I can take a negative 1 out. I'm left with a squared plus 1. Common bracket, a squared plus 1 goes out in front. And my leftover pieces, a minus 1. Now you might look at this and say, oh, isn't that a difference of 2 squares? It's not. It's a sum of 2 squares. So that's all. Hopefully this explains it. Thanks for listening.